In a quaint little village, nestled in the hills of a lush, faraway valley, there lived a woman named Miriam. She was an old lady, but if you asked anyone in the village, they would tell you that Miriam had the heart of a young girl. Her silver hair and weathered hands might have suggested years of experience, but her eyes, bright and sparkling with mischief, told a different story. She had lived through many seasons of life, but it was her attitude that made her truly remarkable. She always found joy in every situation, no matter how difficult. Miriam's cottage sat on the outskirts of the village, surrounded by a vibrant garden filled with colorful flowers and fragrant herbs. It was a humble home, but it was always alive with the sweet scent of jasmine, lavender, and wild roses that Miriam took great pride in cultivating. Her neighbors would often stop by just to chat, to ask for advice, or to find solace in the warmth of her company. Her home, like Miriam herself, had a story. The small cottage was built by her late husband, who had passed away many years ago. But instead of sinking into sorrow, Miriam had transformed her grief into a deep sense of appreciation for the life they had shared. "Life is too short to mourn," she would often say with a chuckle, "and the world is too beautiful to spend all your time in tears." Her morning routine was something of a legend. Before the first light of dawn, Miriam would rise and make a pot of steaming tea. She would sit by her window, watching as the sun began to rise over the hills, painting the sky with hues of gold and pink. "It's a brand new day," she would whisper to herself. "Another chance to make something beautiful." Miriam had a knack for finding beauty in the smallest of things. A fallen leaf, a bird's song, the way the dew clung to the petals of her flowers. Nothing escaped her attention. "Beauty is everywhere," she often told the villagers. "You just have to look closely enough." One spring morning, after a heavy rainstorm, Miriam's garden was in disarray. The flowers were bent, the branches of her prized cherry tree were broken, and the dirt was turned into mud. Villagers feared that the storm had ruined her garden beyond repair. But Miriam, ever the optimist, merely shook her head and smiled. "What is life without a little rain?" she said to herself. "The storm has passed, and now it's time for the sunshine to make everything better again." With tireless hands, she set to work, gently tending to each flower and branch, coaxing them back to life. Days later, her garden bloomed more magnificently than ever. The roses were fuller, the daisies more vibrant, and the lilacs sweeter smelling than before. Miriam's secret, she said, was simple. You can't let the storms of life keep you down. You just have to weather them with patience and kindness, and eventually the sun will shine again. Miriam's wisdom spread through the village like wildfire. Whenever someone was in need, they would come to her. One chilly evening, a young couple knocked on her door. They had recently moved to the village, hoping to start a new life, but they were struggling. Their savings were nearly gone, and they felt lost. "We don't know how to make things better," they confessed, their eyes full of worry. Miriam invited them in, offering them tea and the comfort of her warm fireplace. She listened quietly as they poured out their fears, never once interrupting. When they had finished, she looked at them with her usual twinkle in her eye and said, "Do you know what's the most important thing in life? It's not money. It's not success. It's love. If you have love for each other, for the life you're building together, everything else will fall into place. Look around you, my dears. You already have everything you need." The couple left Miriam's cottage that night, with hearts full of hope. They found the courage to start anew, and over time, their small business flourished. They returned to Miriam often, bringing her fresh produce, a basket of handmade bread, or simply a warm hug. Miriam smiled each time and said, "Remember, happiness is not something you find. It's something you choose." Years passed and Miriam's health began to decline. She was no longer able to tend to her garden as she once had, and the villagers grew concerned. They started visiting her more frequently, bringing her food and company, and asking her to share her wisdom. One by one, they came to her with their burdens, and one by one, they left with lighter hearts. One evening, as Miriam sat by the fire, a young boy came to her. He was about 10 years old, with a worried look on his face. "Miss Miriam," he said softly, "I've heard so many people talk about how happy you are. But I don't know how to be happy. I'm always worried about something, and nothing ever feels good enough." Miriam looked at him for a long moment, her face softening with understanding. She patted the seat beside her. "Come sit with me. I'll tell you a secret," she said. The boy sat down, eager to hear her words. "Happiness isn't about having everything you want," Miriam began. "It's about making the most of what you have. You can choose to focus on what's wrong in the world, or you can choose to find the good. The flowers in my garden aren't perfect, but that's what makes them beautiful. They're real. They're alive, and they teach me to appreciate the imperfections." The boy listened intently, his eyes wide with realization. "So, it's okay to not be perfect." "Of course," Miriam said with a laugh. "Perfection is a myth. Embrace who you are, just as you are. Life is too short to wish for something else. Be kind to yourself, and the happiness will follow." As the boy left, he felt a weight lift from his shoulders. He realized that happiness wasn't something he had to chase. It was something he could create simply by shifting his perspective. In the years that followed, Miriam's legend only grew. Though her body grew frail, her spirit remained as bright as ever. The villagers continued to visit her, and her home was always filled with laughter, love, and the warm glow of companionship. Even in her final days, Miriam faced death with the same grace and optimism that had guided her through life. "Don't mourn for me," she told her loved ones. "Just remember to keep choosing happiness, even when life is hard. That's all I've ever done." When Miriam passed away peacefully at the age of 97, the entire village mourned her loss deeply. But they also celebrated her life, for she had taught them something invaluable. That happiness is not a destination, but a choice. Her garden, still thriving in the spring, became a place of pilgrimage for anyone who needed a reminder that joy could always be found, even in the darkest of times. And so Miriam's legacy lived on. The villagers often told stories of her, passing them down from generation to generation. Her words became a guiding light, and her memory was kept alive in the hearts of those who had known her. Miriam may have been gone, but her spirit, the spirit of choosing joy even in the face of hardship, remained forever. The end was never the end for Miriam. In every smile, every act of kindness, every moment of pure joy, her presence was still felt, reminding everyone who knew her that life is what you make of it. And when you choose happiness, the world becomes a far brighter place.